Hi, I'm Chris from Airwindows, and hey, you can do this. Because this is Airwindows DeCrackle. So, doesn't sound very impressive yet, right? I suppose it would be nice to take out the little delicate crackles. But it doesn't seem like much is happening until I turn it off. So Airwindows DeCrackle, and let's make that click go away again. Is probably not entirely successful in that for some kinds of things that you might play audio for instance, check this out. Can't do much about this. Turn that on. It's a little mellower, but turn it back off. And it's about the same. So here's what DeCrackle is actually about. I wanted to do something that could sort of automatically isolate and take out particular kinds of vinyl clicks tending to be on one channel or the other in a very detailed and restricted way without processing all the audio. So what it does is it tries to recognize what a click even is and swap out the click area for a filtered, smooth, softened version. And that works kind of like this. I believe this is going to loop for me. Here, I can set dry wet to full dry is actually about listening only. Well, I have to turn it on first. It's about listening only to what's being taken out. So here we have our surface thing going on. And we've got a threshold control, which is capable of dialing down until it's getting all the little clicks and things. Problem is, it'll also start taking the music if you do that with it. So here's what you do when you've really gotten it kicking in too much. And then it'll affect the actual sound of the music negatively. If we switch over to this section, there's that pop again. And now we're listening only to the pop that gets taken out. Surface is for kind of quieting down the high frequency stuff. It will also affect the audio in the music that you're trying to keep. This is meant not to. This is meant to only kick in on the clicks that you're trying to remove. Filter is setting the range in which it's replacing the audio. So you can set it to try to only declick in very high frequencies or to replace most anything. And if I put it down to here, you can hear a little more easily what this is about. Set up here, we're only replacing high frequencies, so the lows of the clicks are still kind of there. Dialed it way back, and it's trying to replace everything. And again, set this aggressively, it's going to be taking out your actual music as well. So this turns out not to be the AI enhanced to make everything go away, but it's also not editing the content, it's only editing the clicks. It's a machine for finding where the clicks are and removing them. Window tends to be something much like filter. You're probably going to want it to be in the middle somewhere. And you can have a smaller window or a larger one through which it's going to look and try to identify what a click is. What we can hear is that if we kick it on, I better turn it to dry wet of fully dry, which gives you the picture of just only the clicks. Window is going to show you what kinds of regions it's looking to replace with the filtered version. So we can lower the filter a little bit to bring more frequencies into it. And we're starting to look at larger ranges to do this processing over. And again, it's not changing the volume of everything terribly much, because it's about finding those individual clicks, like in here, and not taking the actual music out. Because if we lower the threshold too much, although it's not necessarily, it's not completely dumb as far as only being a volume level it's keying off, it's trying to identify things that are more click-like, but there are still limits. So if we do this, in this little burst of sound, we've identified a couple of clicks in there, and then when we go to full wet, they're reduced from what they would originally be. And this is as far as I got with it. I did my level best, a bunch of live streams I was working on this one, and I got it to where it can find individual pops and clicks like this and subdue them. But I don't necessarily have something where I can go after this without stepping on the audio. Although there are a variety of ways I can try to deal with this to some extent. We go from this to, say, this. We've softened it, we've darkened it a little bit. But this is not about taking away everything you can possibly have in noise, but then that's because this is constant noise. It's looking for isolated moments, like here, and removing the louder ticks. So it's certainly not take away all the noise. It's not necessarily crackle in the sense of if you figure crackle is constantly happening. It's just that if you have stuff like this, we can set things up until it goes away completely. I had this for a while. It was designed because I was trying to clean up vinyl records so that I can show people the records that I grew up on. And I hope to get back into that. I've had a whole bunch of things going on. The reverb work I'm doing at the moment is taking all of my time and attention. But as long as we're playing this, we can also do other things with something like DeCrackle, namely, supposing you abuse it and use it in inappropriate ways. Here is the fully crackle removed, fully dry setting. You see, we can isolate things using this. We can make the window be smaller. We could have the threshold be bigger or smaller. This is taking a sort of pop out of the initial attack of the drum. Or we can do a much larger window, as you can see. And if we start flipping this over to where we're using the dry wet, a little tiny bit of over to the wet means it's going to be mostly dry. It'll switch off the sort of delta function, isolating only what's being removed. And we get this. But then as we keep adding more wet, we're doing a weird thing. So now we have a sort of goofy pop on the beginning of the sound. Or if we tighten up the window, we can make it so you hardly hear anything happening at all. And then take away that initial hit and dial it back. Now we've got a weird compressor happening. So, if you wanted to do this, well, you can certainly do that. Nobody's stopping you. I'm not your mom. It was intended to work for vinyl noise reduction. And like I demonstrated, there are isolated things that can happen in vinyl noise where it does its job. And there are also things that can happen where it's going to take away things like drum attacks and so on. So this is as far as I was able to get. I'm going to get back to the reverbs and things now because that's going better than this did. But I'll probably use this on pieces of music that I put up on YouTube to show what the classic vinyl record sounded like. It's not going to do that exceptional of a job at making it sound like it was off of a CD. But the way the transient replacement works, if I can do stuff that isolates, and remember, it's not actually looking for clicks like in the mid channel. It's looking for stuff that is out of phase with the characteristics of what a pop or a click would normally be. And it's all about dialing in that stuff so that it triggers on the clicks and doesn't necessarily trigger on drum hits and things. And finding that sweet spot's on you. And if you can't do that, then it's going to hurt the sound of the music. And if you can do it, it might be able to take out some of the loudest random clicks, but without sounding like it was actually doing anything. And lots of the quieter stuff will still be there because this is not processing the audio into like a thin paste. It's leaving almost everything completely and totally untouched. Kind of like my Clip-Only 2 plugin tends to try to leave all of the samples untouched until it has something to do. This is like that. This is one of those things where there's little isolated things that it's going to be able to excise as if they weren't even there. And the rest of it is going to be the way that it was. So I'm going to likely use it. You'll never know if I did because you won't hear the loud pops and clicks Often I remove those manually, and I endorse doing that as well. But I've been asked for DeCrackle, probably because people thought that it would work better than it does. I'm just making sure that you know that you can also misuse it for doing goofy things with drum attacks and so on. And who's to say that might not be the secret use of it? I'll get back to my work. I have good reverb work coming along, following up K Beyond with other stuff that's even better. And I have been asked for a little plugin called Pointy Deluxe, because Pointy Guitar is out. And I had this interest of making something where I took that and ran completely amok with it, perhaps doubling the number of filter controls so that it's like a giant graphic EQ, and I could name it after the Slipperman bands of EQ, Slipperman's Distorted Guitars from Hell stuff, and maybe see what it does taking out that cabinet simulator and using the new reverbs to replace like a cabinet sim with just dialing in the tone very aggressively and transparently, and then filling it in with a room type of sound to replace the idea of a cabinet being part of the sound. After all, the cabinet is like a giant convolution impulse, just very confined. And why not do the similar thing with like a tight room reverb or something? And so I'm going to be doing a little bit of work on that, which should be coming along pretty soon. And I've even got a guitar for working on that more effectively and being able to bring people tools in the box for maybe new kinds of guitar tone that would work with your needs. And I'll get back to working on that. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.